see how this works. Oh, hello. Nope. Okay. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the applications of things we've seen earlier, some new applications, some ongoing research, and thankfully I am at this time because a lot of this stuff has already been introduced, which is good for me. So the title of this talk originally was Made Faster, but now it's Distributed Systems Made Better via Quantum Internet. And this is work with NeverLocal, along with Fabrizio and Stefano, and Nicola, who's not here. And I'm also a PhD student at College Park. So without further ado. All right, so quick outline for the talk. It's very brief. First, we're just going to go over the end results. What do we achieve without getting into any detail. Then talk a bit about quantum internet, but it's already introduced. Next, a little bit about what we're using, like the key primitives that was introduced earlier, one-time programs. And then finally, like a couple seconds of cryptography. If you guys aren't into cryptography, that's fine too. Okay, so again, a warning, this is ongoing research, so no grains of salt, please. Yeah, so today we have, like distributed systems are everywhere in cryptography. Blockchain, more blockchain stuff, and I'm sure some non-blockchain stuff, but they're very important. And a lot of them are multi-rounds, so you have to be online for some time. And this poses security risks in certain settings. It makes applications harder to use. And there's ways around this, either using trusted execution environments with very strong assumptions on the trusted execution environments, or I don't know if it's here, there's existing cryptography to go around some of these issues, but in the end, you know, Ethereum is, there's like multiple rounds of interaction people have to do. If you want to do an auction in some private way, you have to do multiple rounds of interaction. And this can be quite tricky. So what we work up to in this talk is a way to compile a lot of multi-round protocols into a single round. So what this means is that every party in a distributed system only has to do one broadcast, and then it can drop offline. And this can be applied to things like secret sharing, global randomness, single round secret leader election, and many more things, and sealed auctions. So yeah, the goal is to really use simple quantum states, the ones we've been talking about today, conjugate coding, which we'll go over shortly, and the quantum internet to achieve about these results, and trusted execution environments. Okay. So we're going to run through this, but earlier we introduced these, the quantum internet and what we can do. And really for our setting, all we really need are these 4 states, right? So 0, 1, minus, and plus. And we're going to use the uncertainty principle, which says that if I send you 0 and you measure in the, send you 0 and you measure in one of this z basis, you can always recover your 0 or 1, but your plus and minus look random, and vice versa. So I can encode information such that you can only recover part of what I encode. And as Fabrizio mentioned earlier, we can use this along with trusted execution environments or some other assumption to get these things, to get one-time programs, which we'll go over shortly. But today, these states are used for things like quantum key distribution, which Mark just talked about, a few other things such as quantum tokens, calibration tests. There's something called position verification. It's very cool, but we'll talk about that. And yeah. But if we assume that we have some level of noise in our quantum computers or trusted execution environments, we can build one-time programs, which Fabrizio mentioned. And one-time programs are this very cool primitive that allow you to send over a state, and this state encodes a function. You can evaluate said function once, and then the ability to evaluate that function gets destroyed. So like they almost seem non-physical, right? Like I can't send you an email and that email self-destructs. So they're very odd and very impossible in a lot of ways, but once you have some extra assumptions, you can build them. But the problem with quantum key distribution is that we don't have quantum memory, as Mark mentioned. And quantum memory is very hard to achieve. Quantum memory, which lasts more than a few seconds, is extremely hard to achieve, especially with photonics, which is the main technology that people are using to send over quantum states. So we term this an ephemeral one-time program, meaning that I send you your function f, you have to use it within milliseconds. You don't have the time to wait around and use it the next day. So what this means is Alice sends Bob the function, Bob receives the function, Bob has to almost immediately use that function. And you might then ask, like, if you don't have the ability to store your function around for a very long time and you have to evaluate it immediately, like, why do we care? Is that even interesting? And turns out, no, it's not useless. You can actually do things with it, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay, so really the core idea behind this talk is to combine homomorphic encryption, which people may be familiar with here, probably have heard of it, with these ephemeral one-time programs. And specifically, we're gonna use something called multi-key homomorphic encryption. So really the goal of what we want to do is be able to distribute quantum states such that we're gonna have some public function f. Let's see. Oh. Nope. Okay. So we're gonna have some function f, and we're gonna have three parties, Fabrizio, Stefano, and Nicola. F, S, and N, these capitals. And they're all gonna have their own secrets. And we want to get it so that all three parties are going to evaluate F on their secrets and some publicly known input. And as we'll show later, this will give us all sorts of different applications. But importantly, this has to be done in one round of broadcasts. So the model is we're gonna have all three parties communicating with each other. They're gonna talk once and then drop offline. So just a brief review of homomorphic encryption and what it is. It allows for computing unencrypted data. So each party has their own secret keys. Fabrizio is going to encrypt a message M to get a ciphertext. He can send that to Stefano, and then Stefano will compute the function on the ciphertext for some function, and send that back to Fabrizio, and Fabrizio can decrypt that ciphertext and get the output of the function. And it's done in such a way that Stefano never learns what the message M is. Now, MHE, or multi-key homomorphic encryption, is very similar, except we have a slightly different setup. Every party can encrypt with their own key, and then each party can have their own messages, broadcast those messages to the different parties, and then all the parties can jointly compute some ciphertext, CT of Y, and the CT of Y is going to be kind of encrypted under all of the different secret keys, under Stefano's, Fabrizio's, and Nicola's. And then next, each party, Fabrizio, Stefano, Nicola, are going to have to compute some partial decryption, these P's right here, and then we can use all these partial decryptions together to get the output of the function. So this is multi-key homomorphic encryption. Time. All right, so a more visual explanation, we're going to have our three parties. Each are going to compute their ciphertexts and exchange them, broadcast them to all parties. Then each party is going to compute these partial decryptions, broadcast them back. And finally, we're going to be able to compute the output of the function we want to jointly compute. So for those of you familiar with multi-party computation, very similar. This is a form of multi-party computation in some ways. So now the question is, what happens when we combine this with our ephemeral one-time programs? And turns out we get some pretty cool results. We're gonna basically use our ephemeral one-time programs to do the partial decryption. So if we remember, we have this partial decryption step that requires extra communication, and instead we're gonna place that into our one-time programs. And letting F be our target function, we're going to send over these partial decryption functions. There's some steps that I'm glossing over, but that's outside the scope of today's talk. So again, same setup. All three parties are going to communicate. They're all going to encrypt their message and send over these encryptions to the other parties. But at the same time, they're going to also send over a one-time program that allows each party to do a partial decryption. So Fabrizio is going to send a message to Stefano, which allows Stefano to do the partial decryption that Fabrizio would have had to do himself otherwise. And then each party can use these one-time programs to just get the output of the function without having to do any more communication. Okay, so we're gonna go over some examples now and why this whole setup is actually useful. So let's say you wanna have some sort of proof of stake mechanism. Each party is there's gonna be a pre-selected leader. Each party is gonna broadcast their one-time programs and their messages, and then the whole program, the output Y is just going to be the signatures that you would require, and everything will be checked internally within the function. I think this is a pretty interesting application that actually is not just honest but curious. But, you can do what are called sealed auctions. So in a sealed auction, you have maybe 3 parties in this case. They're all bidding on something. And they all want their bids to be private until after the auction takes place. And only, say, the second highest bid should be revealed. This is actually a very tricky problem in distributed systems because you can have the parties drop offline if there's more than one round of communication. If someone's unhappy with the result, they can like mess up the whole system. But in this case, we can actually just have each party is going to encrypt their bid and be able to send over their bid, and only the party that wins the auction, their bid's going to get decrypted. And it's one round of communication, and this is, I'd like to stress, a very new application that, as far as I'm aware, you cannot do classically, but maybe there's some caveats. Secret leader election is another classic use case in blockchain. Similar ideas, not gonna beleaguer the point. But yeah, so these ephemeral one-time programs are pretty useful. They're very simple, but they can do a lot of things: shared randomness, verifiable secret sharing, sealed auctions. And I guess the question is, what else can they do, and can we make them more practical? So one of the big problems is that you still need to keep around your states for a few milliseconds, not picoseconds or nanoseconds, as we talked about before. So these are one of the questions of what can you do in practice. And yeah, so short and sweet, but that's my talk.
There's still some room for more questions. Does anyone have any question? No? Yes.
Well, continuing on the same timeline questions, it's a series now. Before I asked what is the opinion on a timeline for quantum communication infrastructure, so to you the question is, what is your opinion on a timeline for quantum memory? What do you think we should expect over the next 3-5 years? For photonics, yes. Or photonically interfaced.
I haven't seen convincing evidence that photonic memories are possible. So, like, but in this case, you don't need photonic memory, right? You just need to slow down your photons for a little bit.
Yeah, I was about to ask, you don't really need quantum memories for this, right?
Yeah, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
You only need to be able to slow down your photons for like a few milliseconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you just have QKD with a lot of like looped fiber to gain some, I mean, a lot of loops of fibers, I get, but yeah.
Or there's some like material people are using which slows down your photons. I think we were looking at this some time ago. But
Yeah, I mean, in the worst case, you can just have, you know, a lot of looped fiber, and it will just have to travel a lot more, but yeah, lots of fiber, kilometers, like.
yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Any other question?
So I was wondering, in the MPC that you described before for the homomorphic decryption, yeah, exactly this one. So do we still have the risk that there's a party that gets access to the output before the other and can, for example, drop off and refuse to share something such that, I don't know, maybe Fab cannot eventually have access to Y?
In the MPC case, without the ephemeral one-time programs, or?
Well, no, I guess, yeah, I guess this is the case in the traditional MPC for decryption, and I'm wondering if this is still the case with your proposed construction.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like I was trying to think about this a good amount. There's hard to give a general answer, but you have to go with specific protocols. For a lot of protocols, no, you actually get around these issues of like being dropped offline. So you can somehow like you can make it so that if a protocol is behaving dishonestly, you can actually just exclude them rather than having them abort. That's the big difference.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lev. An applause, please.